Okay.
Yeah. How are things that side?
No, we're good. We're good. Also having all kinds of weather, yeah, but slowly getting into summer.
Okay.
How's your work going there?
It's crazy busy, but that time of the quarter, so busy with trustee meetings and things like
Okay. Morning, Ben.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hey, I know, long time no see.
Long time. How have you been?
Good.
Good.
So, only what kind of work do you actually do in Botswana in the financial planning sector?
So I'm actually a pensions consultant.
Okay.
So it's pretty much limited to pension consulting. Sadly for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Morning, Brittany. Welcome for the first time. Okay, I knew you were going to be quiet, but that's fine. Morning, Barry.
Morning all. Thanks for talking. I was checking whether my Bluetooth speakers were working or not, and nobody was saying a word. Wasn't sure.
Cool. Okay, I think it's just wait for a few more people to join. How's Durban today, Ben?
It's a bit warmer than yesterday. Yeah, it was. Well, for Durban, it was freezing.
Barry, how's Cape Town? Morning, Haley.
Stunningly beautiful.
Guys,
Haley,
Summer is
congratulations on your new job.
thank you so much, Dirk.
How's it going?
No, it's going well, thank you. I'm enjoying it. I'm 6 weeks in now.
Okay, great.
Sorry, it's quite loud where I am. I have to go to a cafe because we have load shedding.
Yeah, we got load shedding as well. So
Yeah. So the setup kind of works where I'm in office sort of 2 days a week and working from home 3 days at the moment. Yeah, because they recently opened up this like sort of office in Cape Town. So I think from next year we'll look for, a proper office space.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Morning, Bradley. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much.
Cool. How's it, Si?
Morning, how's it, Dirk?
Have you got load shedding that end of town?
Not right now, hey, but we had yesterday. We were riddled with it. It was, and our generator decided to pack up, so it made things difficult.
Okay, cool. How are the little ones?
No, all good. Touch wood. We're on a good stretch. No, all healthy. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, guys, we've got a few newbies. Bradley, just want to fill us in on who you are, where you're from, why have you joined the group?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm based in Cape Town. I'm working at private wealth management.
Okay.
I finished at Stellenbosch last year. I was doing an undergrad with a focal area in financial planning. I'm busy doing my postgrad at the moment in financial planning. So I'm kind of just interning. I'm kind of in an intern paraplanning role, working under one of the advisors, Dieter Schwendinger. I'm working under him and just learning from him. And then I chatted to Sharon and Shannon, two of the ladies that we work with from Old Mutual, and they kind of said this could be just a really good space just to learn from other people in the industry. So
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. That's definitely what it is. Yeah. Brittany, I know you. Do you want to just quickly type where you are, who you're with, and a little bit about yourself, just so we know? Morning, Russell. I see you also load shedding.
It's just the light.
Okay. Okay, so Brittany's in Cape Town. Okay, great. Okay, well, welcome, guys. So time's just flying. We're already September. It's crazy. So we've got a few sessions left this year. Yeah, so you guys all saw the slide. I'm going to just share it with you. I think Ben put this up a few weeks ago. And let me just try and size it now. Of course, it was sized perfectly, but now I'm on the laptop. There we go. So this is really just, it was Brendan Fraser, I think, put it up, and the source is The Trusted Advisor, which is a book which some of you might have read. I know I've read it. Sorry, let me just unshare because there's someone trying to get in here.
So I've let
Morning,
Jim in.
everyone.
Okay.
Sorry, Dick. I'll let people in if they come.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, so obviously it's quite an interesting slide, and I know there was a brief chat about it, but I just thought it's something that's worth discussing, especially because so many of you are newish to the industry, or trying to branch out on your own, and I think often, especially when you come straight from studying, you have a very different view of what you're going to be doing when you start working as a financial planner, and it can be quite confusing. So obviously the big thing that stands out here is that technical skills and expertise are valued the least, which I think initially comes as a big surprise to everyone. Although the way I see it, it's, if we compare ourselves to, say, if we go to a doctor or we go to an attorney, a lawyer, we don't ever think about, like, did this guy get 45% for his finals or 95%? We kind of accept that, as a professional, they know what they're talking about. And if you think about it, we probably realize that that's not the case. So even with doctors, you'll get doctors who will specialize in a certain area, and lawyers do exactly the same. That still doesn't mean they're really good at what they do. So if you think about it, it probably does make sense. But it is quite interesting that I think general society out there is changing to want real relationships with their financial planners. Again, so your product knowledge and all that, it's really not that important. And I think my thinking is that probably clients, they either don't understand that, or they just accept that you should be on that level in any case, if you're going to be good at what you're doing. So guys, I'm going to stop sharing quickly. I know you've all seen the slide, as I'm just looking at a blank picture. Just any views on this, or whether you guys were surprised or you're not surprised. Bradley, I'm going to pick on you again because you're new, and even Haley, because I mean you guys are new to the industry. I mean, what was your feeling when you look at that? How does that compare? And also, you guys are a younger generation. I'm a bit older, but how does it compare to what you expected? And is that different, Bradley?
Yeah, I think to be honest, it definitely surprises me a little bit. I think coming straight out of studies, you definitely I don't think your studies fully prepare you for when you come into the industry. I think it gives you maybe the knowledge to do things, but not really the aspects, like in this case, that the clients would be looking for. I think that's something that's developed maybe over time, or through just being in the industry. So I think, I must say, in the last six months that I've been here, I've probably learned more about the practical way of dealing with clients than about the knowledge. So I think if I go back 6 months, this would have surprised me. But now being here even just for 6 months and dealing with clients and realizing how even like just watching other advisors deal with clients, realizing what the clients need and realizing, it's not all about what you know. It's really helpful to obviously know the important things, but it's not all about, your client's not interested in necessarily the technical details about what you might be doing. They want to kind of, in essence, they want to know you there for them, which is kind of, I think I was more going to be under the impression 6 months ago that it was more going to be based on, you need to know those like nitty gritty things that they teach you at varsity, and they teach you these very intricate things in varsity. But yeah, I think practically that doesn't really help the client in terms of your relationship with the client. That's more like background work. So I think it does. Yeah, I would say 6 months ago it might have surprised me, but now I'd say it's not as surprising now.
Yeah. And Bradley, I mean, how has that made you feel about the industry? Because obviously when you go in with a certain expectation and changes, I would imagine, and if and I don't know you from Adam, if someone was extremely technical and they like that kind of stuff, it might be disappointing. Whereas if you're more personal, then obviously it could be quite refreshing.
Yeah, I think my draw to the financial planning like world and environment, I think it was people. So I had looked at like kind of the CFA type route, which is more obviously a little bit more analytical and a little bit more, I'd say probably slightly less people in one regard. And I think my draw kind of was people. So I had hoped to come in and be surprised that it was going to be like totally focused on that, because I love interacting with people. So I think I was probably pleasantly surprised coming in the way that it has been, how it is focused on people and helping others, as opposed to just this technical aspect of you just managing people's money. It's more than that. So I think, yeah, in a positive way, I think I think each practice will be different. I've been really lucky with the practice I've been put in, with the way that my boss has just dealt with the clients. But I think, yeah, I can definitely say for me, I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay, great. Hayley, your views on it?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think I can echo a lot of what Bradley was saying there. So I've been working now for 6 weeks at the company, and before actually finding the opportunity, I chatted to a lot of people in industry, and what became very clear was like the movement towards financial coaching, behavioral coaching, and all of those elements were like brought up a lot and often discussed. So when I saw this graph, it was nice to see that definitely translated to what is important to the clients at the end of the day as well. So yeah, I was lucky enough to be a part of like the 10th anniversary event for the company and meet a lot of the clients. And I wasn't quite sure going in like what that would be like, whether it would be quite stiff and sort of, rigid and a bit like, awkward and formal, but it was the complete opposite. The clients were there, they were like friends with all of the other clients because they've, built up a relationship over the years being at the same company. And I could see that was really important to everybody that was there. It was more like, those softer skills and elements that I think keep a client. And also just with financial planning, it seems from what I've seen, a lot of the advisors outsource the real technical sort of investment side of it to like a DFM. But the clients for the financial planning can trust that they know how to identify those people that are going to be doing the technical skills. So it's more just the importance of identifying the right person to outsource the technical skills to. And so that's maybe why it's small. They just need to be able to maybe identify that well. And then, the clients are sort of have the peace of mind that the person, the financial planner chooses to do that, knows what they're doing, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I just think like what's important also is the quality of information and advice. So I think what I have found is important is that the financial planner sort of shows both sides of, an argument, and then sort of goes through the process of rationalizing their choice with the client at the end of the day, not just saying this is the best option, but showing both sides and then going forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who's had a different experience? Mike, I see you new as well. Sorry, battling to hear you, Mike. No. Okay. All right, we'll try later. Yeah, I think for me, what's really important, I'll just share this thing again. You know, when I look at that, it really speaks to, and I think it's important for especially, you know, newcomers to the industry, is to understand, you know, the kind of relationships that clients are actually wanting. You know, I mean, if we look at, you know, 82% being about the interpersonal skills, which talks to how we communicate, the ability to engage, caring, you know, and then listening, things like that, and then professional being the next, and professional there means honesty, ethically, you know, and confidence. In other words, people kind of want to feel that we know what we're doing and that we're on the right track. And I think it speaks to, you know, the kind of relationships that, you know, when so those of you who have worked at corporates, you know, like I started many years ago, where the kind of training that you get at a typical, sorry, June, Old Mutual, or in my day, a Southern Life, or a Sanlam, or a Liberty, you're generally going to get training on product, and then you get training on sales skills, you know. And I think one of the reasons that a lot of the guys who've been, and girls who've been successful in the industry in the past, if you look at what they've got in common, a lot of them were very good. They had very good interpersonal skills. They maybe didn't really crap planning, and they sold a whole lot of shit, but at the end of the day, they could only do that because their interpersonal skills were really good. But I think what appeals to me, when I think where there's a difference, is that a lot of the in those days, and there's still some of them around, you know, they would have hundreds or even thousands of clients. And when you look at the things that are now important, such as listening and caring and that kind of thing, you're certainly not able to do that authentically. I think if you do have a large amount of clients, it becomes more difficult, because you know, you can only have so many best friends. So I think it's important that it speaks to, you know, when you're starting out and you're wanting to, you pitch yourself, because that's what we're doing. Ultimately, you're selling yourself to a new potential client. Is that, you know, they're not, they probably, they would anticipate that your level of knowledge and skill is going to be pretty good when it comes to products and the industry stuff. But I think what's certainly more important is the like the personal human side, where, you know, you make sure that they understand that the meeting's all about them, and it's more about us talking less and listening more. And I think then that also speaks to, you know, kind of our social media, you know, or whatever, those of us who put stuff out there to try and connect with clients, you know, and hopefully get that to resonate with people so they might want to deal with us. We're all on LinkedIn, and we still see a hell of a lot of technical stuff that's out there. And I think although that's important, I think a lot of the personal stuff, you know, is more important as well. I'm going to ask guys just to comment on this as well, because I don't want to be talking all the time. Russell, I know you've always got an opinion that we'd like to hear.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome, Bradley. And sorry, I missed the other girl's name as well. Was it Haley? Oh, yeah, the new people to the team. Yeah, I 100% agree. I still think I'm in between. Well, 8 years, 9 years now in the industry. But I share the same sentiments, because when you come from varsity, you have like this technical background, so you think you're going to be crunching numbers and so forth. And I think from my mentality, when I started at Old Mutual, PFA, and then I got into seniors practice, and that was a blessing, because he showed me like proper advice as well, and not like product pushing or selling. And I would say it changed my mentality a whole lot completely, because when you study financial plan or finance in varsity, you generally think your first idea is like, okay, I'm going to be pitching and doing stock valuations and things like that for clients. But you find now, I would say, and I'm still learning a lot, especially from Dirk and a lot of the senior guys in this group. I'm still finding that majority of the value that clients appreciate, and they actually appreciate more over time as you build relationships with them, is actually the more behavior and human side of it. I've had even young millennial clients or clients in my current generation that usually are DIY investors. They still pay and hire me on a fee basis because they want a human to soundboard ideas or decisions they make in their life that involves their money. And I've asked them a few times, like, do you think generally you could just keep investments to DIY or robo advice and all that? And they actually even shared the same sentiment. They say, no, they actually need a human person because, like, maybe to start off, if you're just setting up your own investment account, like your small investment account, yes, you can do that yourself through a DIY platform. But eventually, as you go through different life stages or cycles and you progress through life and you have bigger decisions, they need a human person there to kind of like say, I want to do this. Is it good or bad? And you find, from my experience, you'll find that most of your meetings, and we're not psychologists or therapists, but most of our meetings is probably, I find with a lot of my clients, 90% about their life and what they want to do in their lives. And then 10% is about the finance side. But that 90% matters so much and influence so much what they do with the money of that 10%. So I find, especially in these last 2 years with COVID, and especially even now, I've even told a lot of peers about it. You'll find a lot of your old traditional, advisors, the ones that are used to positioning their value on the product that they sell, are now at a short end because they either would sell their value on investment performance or a certain product to the clients. And now these last 2 years or this current year, markets have been very volatile, they've been going up and down. And a lot of them I find, and this is where I've gotten a lot of like clients that have come back to me as like referrals and that as well, have like gone quiet. They haven't communicated with clients. And looking at the graph or the diagram that Dirk sent out, I also saw it when it was shared on LinkedIn. Is that I think the last 2 years and this year currently, plays or puts that factor at such importance because we've probably done more coaching and guiding clients and being there for clients in times of need. And I've told peers that as well, is that, in times of crisis or when there's noise and a lot of fear in the media like now, it's actually your opportunity to shine and add value as a financial advisor or financial planner, because you're there to actually talk them through and say, look, the world's not falling apart. You're not going to lose everything. Everything's going to be okay. We're still on track with your plan. You still maintain your daily living, and also I think taking a more proactive approach of like, this is probably what's possibly going to happen. These are the possible scenarios. Let's just kind of like plan for it. And I find with a lot of my clients, I've done a lot of that over especially the last 2 years with all what's happening in the market and what's happening in the world. And they've appreciated so much that they, without realizing that when they talk to their family and friends, it's less about finance, but it's like, oh, I talked to my financial planner and I could talk to him about this. And you find that's actually more rare than what we expect. So yeah, I think just to conclude, I find behavior coaching has played a major role the last 2 to 3 years, especially this year currently.
Yeah, great. And I think, you mentioned robo, and we certainly find that, and I see in the future that all the technical stuff is going to be done by apps, and we're seeing it already. There's new stuff being launched all the time. We spoke to Francois last week about a new tax app that they're launching together with ComSpace, and there's more and more of that stuff that people are just. You can go and Google online whether it's what my car payment's going to be or what my tax rate, all that kind of stuff. That's going to happen. So I think, people who have that is obviously they are very high level technical skills that we may need, but we have the view that we would rather then get experts in who do that. So even when it comes to estate planning, and I know we all meant to know about estate planning, and we do, but the reality is, to be a specialist estate planner is takes a hell of a lot of time and a very high level of skill, because now we're talking about tax laws and trusts and all kinds of things. And you know, most of our time should be spent really in front of clients. And Russell, as you say, a lot of what we do, and you know, I think also maybe a lot of you younger people in younger in age and younger in the industry, when you hear all this stuff about coaching and all that, I would imagine it's pretty intimidating. And the view that you got to take on that, in my opinion, is just that it's one of those things you're never ever going to stop learning. So, you know, you can go on all the courses in the world. And I mean, we've like got to a phase, I know, like I'm part of the Volunteer Association. We're planning a summit, and it's kind of, well, you know, do we need another one of these soft speakers? And the reality is, like, there's so much out there at the moment. If you want to learn the soft skills, there are a lot of fantastic courses you can go on. There's a lot of free stuff you can get out there to learn. But I think the reality is that it takes time. And, you know, my view certainly is that I'm just of the opinion I'm never ever going to get there. I'm just going to keep on learning and keep on getting better. And I think for those of you who can't afford these courses and all that, you know, instead of, you know, words like coaching and life coaching are quite intimidating. The reality is, for me, is actually just being real and being human. So, you know, just when you know, there was a word in there, caring. People want to know, and we all know people don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care. And we know that's true. But again, I think you can only do that if you actually prepare yourself mentally and emotionally for it. And one thing we try and do, and we don't get it right a lot of the time, but is actually to prepare yourself for a meeting, and not only having had a look at the client's portfolio or working out, you know, looking at their budget, but it's actually just preparing yourself before a meeting so that when you get there, you know who the person is. We have a thing called a client bio that we try and write down when we first meet clients, all the soft stuff, like all, well, it's actually just their history. It's like where they're from, where, you know, any family situations that they've been through or experienced, or, you know, past or present, because it helps us then put us in that client's shoes. And then just being really present when you are in that meeting, you know, and I think if you're doing that, then automatically, you know, most people who do lifestyle planning have what they call the care gene. You really do want to make a difference in someone's life. And I think that kind of coaching that we talk about just automatically does start happening, just because we are listening to them. Ben, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I actually had a question, and I think it would be good maybe just to answer, or we can maybe explore it. Is that, I mean, I think a lot of stuff out there and even online and things does have I'd say more like onboarding a client. So there's a lot of work and coaching and things on that side. But I was just thinking, Dirk, and you could maybe just share some of your expertise with us, is what happens in, you know, it's 2 or 3 years time and the client calls in and says, I've just been diagnosed with terminal cancer or something, you know, my husband's just passed away, you know, like those are real life things that happen. But varsity and all the studying doesn't prepare you at all for that, you know, like you know, it's not, I mean, I think for a lot of people we wouldn't have a clue what to do. How do you, you know, what is, you know, what are you trying to achieve, maybe just in that phone call to reassure them or whatever, and then set up a meeting to go through technical stuff. You start, you know, our brain starts going into technical thing like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, you know, but what maybe is some good practical things, and it's kind of part of coaching and interpersonal skills, but like, how do we handle those sort of situations, because that's real life and that's like a lot of what happens in our jobs.
Yeah, Ben, I think a lot of us who've been in the business have had those experiences, especially with what the world's been through in the last while. You know, we have, and I'll maybe touch on some. But I think again, it comes down to who you are as a person. Is like what would a normal, decent human being do in a situation like that? I remember when I was in my 20s, I had this guy was like one of my biggest clients, and he had 2 big life policies with me, and you know, taking him to play golf and been for lunch, all the things we did in those days. You know, that was like how you behaved, and he was a lovely guy, and he was always arrears on premiums. And the one day finally got up to date with everything, and a week later he killed himself. and the policies weren't 2 years old yet, so they wouldn't pay out. And you know, I was probably 26, 27 from Southern Life. Like, no one said, okay, guys, do this or do that or whatever. And I remember it was a moment for me. It's like, geez, I mean, first of all, they're not going to pay out, so the family's screwed. And then, you know, how do I tell them? And, you know, I think probably my upbringing, I just drove to the house and I sat with the family and tried to explain it as best I could. But I mean, I think when you have moments like that is when you realize like what this industry, the good, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, but what the good actually, you know, should be. And I know that, you know, that was almost 30 years ago, so things have changed a lot. I mean, you know, I mean, so I'll share. That Alex and I had a meeting last week with a client who did extremely well through COVID. They got a business that sells stuff in the UK. It was a little business. It absolutely exploded, and they were going to go into Europe, everything. And for some reason, everything's completely reversed. And they are a month or two from possibly having to close this business down. So all the planning that we had done, and he was referred to us by his business partner, who is a client who's got a similar business also in SA, which is still booming. And he it was like a funny call. He was like telling us, you know, he might have to move to the UK, to London, and to try and revive it and this and this. But at the end of the day, we realized his call was kind of almost apologetic that he wasn't going to be able to be this great client that we thought he was going to be. In other words, having lots of money. And he was like, kind of like, you know, and we just reassured him. We said, listen, bud, when you back up on your feet again, we're here. We're here for the good times and the bad times. And I think that's where it's really important that, you know, in your makeup, that you build those kind of relationships, that you can show that you are genuine. And if you do that, I mean, he sent us a message afterwards, which was like really emotional. We could see that he was just so thankful that, and he said, you know, they respect us so much, and when the money comes, he'll be dealing with us. So I think it's sometimes those very difficult situations, but just doing what you think you should do. So if someone passes, like, if you got to treat them like family, what would you do? Well, you just go and be there. You do the difficult stuff, because I think when you do that, like we know in that person's life, we've made a huge difference. We've proved ourselves when times were tough. And not only when he gets back on his feet will we be dealing with him, but he's also going to refer other people to us. And if other people mention us to him, he's going to say, well, you know, that's a great bunch of people. So I think, again, I mean, you can go on all the courses in the world, you know, but I think also just actually, you know, just genuinely caring and being human is really important. I don't know if anyone else has got anything that they want to share on a circumstance like that. Simon, maybe.
Yeah, thanks, Dirk. I think just to comment on the picture, if you sort of start to add up all the human elements of the graph, it kind of far outweighs, was the biggest section of the skills that are most valued. And I think it shows, to be a good advisor, you need to be quite versatile, with almost being an all-rounder, with the different elements. The technical knowledge for me, I think when I finished varsity, was something that was always in the back of my mind. Is, you know, I needed, you know, you were going into a job without any experience, so you almost felt like you had to, you know everything to show that you had competence. You know, but you very quickly realize, once you sort of get into client-facing stuff, like you said, Dirk, I think it's more that people hopefully have an assumed, you sort of have this assumed technical ability, and they rather appreciate the focus to be on, you know, what's going on in their life. So we've had a year this year as well where I think the biggest, you have to be able to empathize with people. Obviously, this industry, you're helping people navigate through some of the biggest financial and emotional life events you can imagine, whether it's loss of a person or a diagnosis they didn't expect to get, or retrenchment. And to just be able to sit down with them and talk about the technical side is not going to it's not going to do the trick. Certainly not while they've just had the news hit them. So, I mean, I've had a lady been referred to me, and she had just lost her husband. He had a lump on his head in January. The first doctor's appointment he could get was March. He went there in March to the plastic surgeon, got the lump cut out, and within, I think it was a week, he was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma, and he was dead in a month. So from diagnosis to death, this lady had to process, the loss of a spouse, loss of the breadwinner. She wasn't working. She had an adopted son. She hadn't worked for a number of years and felt, basically unemployable. So when she did manage to get a job in amongst all this chaos, because she had to, she was earning nowhere near what the household required. So all these sort of pressures in whoever the person is and whatever their story is, if you can't empathize with them or know how to sort of walk them through the first initial engagements you get with them, because essentially I think the big skill there is to build trust with them. Competency or technical knowledge is not going to earn you trust. It may give them a bit of peace of mind, but at the end of the day, a couple of meetings later and they realize they don't really enjoy the rest of who you are, it's maybe not going to be where they value the relationship. So I think my big point will be, it's a brilliant industry, but maybe one should ask themselves where they really enjoy it. Are they more technical? Then maybe they need to look at a different type of role, because the biggest reward you'll get out of client-facing financial planning roles is being able to help people. So yeah, I think you've got to be able to help people when they're at their absolute most vulnerable, and that's both emotionally and obviously sharing the most sensitive sort of information, whether it's financial or whatever sort of life goals they want to get. So I think you've got to be like when I first saw that picture, I think I saw it a couple of years ago. I read a lot of stuff on the value advice and where I need to actually prioritize what we're spending our time on and how we sort of give our clients the experience of adding value to their lives. And when I initially saw it, I got a shock, and I've seen it so many times since. But it makes perfect sense, having sort of spent more years in the industry. And as you go, you realize, when you need to in a meeting, call it 20% of the meeting, when you need to call on a technical point because you've got a question, it's great. But that puts them at ease to say, right, how can you help me solve what my actual issues are? Yeah, so I think it comes with a combination of time, and I always appreciate you, Dirk, in saying, you've been in the industry a hell of a long time, but you're always learning, and I think we'll always learn. We learn along the way. But yeah, I mean, just from a personal experience this year, we've had a number of really hectic things happen with clients. I'm sure we all deal with those sort of things at different times, but loss of a loved one and sort of hearing bad news is terrible. So you've got to be able to walk them through the road and know when to get to the financial planning part of it. You first need to take them out for lunch, say, are you okay? Don't worry, we'll sort the other stuff for you. You just do the bare minimum here. Next time we'll address this. Today's maybe not the right day. So I think that, those sort of skills are absolutely crucial.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, Ben, Alex, and I were together last week and talking, obviously doing some planning and everything. And one thing I've kind of picked up lately is that we email a hell of a lot. Like we send out a lot of emails and maybe WhatsApp or whatever. And what we certainly do less of is calling, is actually phoning. And I mean, now that you mention it, we got a client who we've never met in person. She's in Pretoria, and we've onboarded her and helping her plan her life and everything. And she's single. She's in the late 30s. She brought her parents to us, so now we've met them online and we're handling their affairs. And we got a message on Saturday basically telling us that she's also got a melanoma. Went to the doctor last Friday. It's a lot worse than she thought. She's going back this Friday, and like like we don't know what to do. Now we're going to have to redo the wills and everything. And it's like, and you've actually made me think now. I mean, so we've been in contact through email and all that, but you know, we probably actually just pick up the phone and give her a call, because, you know, and it might be upsetting, but it's important that I think that we get out of our comfort zones, because if we show people that we care, that's like the best thing that we can actually do. So like, there's nothing we can do. You know, one of the things over there was empathy as well, and I always thought empathy was like confirming what people were saying, like until I read a book, I forget which it was, but where empathy is actually just listening and just being there, not saying, oh, I understand, because you don't understand. Like, you know, if in this example, you know, I don't have cancer, so I've got no idea. I can try and imagine what it's like, but I've got actually no idea, you know. So that empathy, I think, is important as well. And I think if you're going to be great at what we do, then you've actually got to possibly look for those really uncomfortable areas and push yourself into that, because you're going to learn so much, and the relationship that you're going to build with that client is going to be very, very real. And again, you know, I think when people feel that, that's really important. And again, that speaks to the number of people that we can deal with. You know, we still think it's 70 or 80 families that we can deal with. You know, I think more than that, even if you've got great backup staff, I think is really difficult. I'm trying to see what else I was. Yeah. So and then what I think helps with this as well, what we've learned. Sorry, June. Sorry.
Dirk, maybe just something that came up for me when you spoke about empathy. So you were also taught, you know, as part of coaching, when you listen with empathy, it's also listening without judgment, which sometimes is difficult, especially in our industry, because, you know, you might have had a meeting with this client and you might have recommended whatever, which he didn't follow. And now something happened, and it's, you know, it's almost easy to come into a meeting saying, yeah, but we told you this is important. And so it's really just kind of holding that space for them without any judgment involved. That's also very, you know, important with empathy. I thought I'll just highlight that as well.
Yeah. Thanks, June. Sorry, Russell, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I was actually just sharing your same sentiment. I think, you know, in a general speaking sense as well, you know, having that empathy and also just being you with clients definitely matters a lot. So I have a similar story where, Shane, like it was also a referral client, and we had never met in person, but we did it through Zoom and all that as well. And basically, first I met, it was just him as a client, and then you'd be surprised, being human. Also, my viewpoint since I started the industry has always been putting myself in the client's shoes. So, you know, it's in a sense client centric, but like think about like whatever you do when it comes in contact with a client, if you were the client, how would you receive that? You know, that was always my big, I would say, point that I've had in mind since I started. And with this client, for example, we started with just me and him, and then like we've been working together for just over a year. But you'd be surprised, like your insight and sharing the human side of like, you know, the advice you give to a client. I always also think about like, would this be advice that I would give to like my family or myself basically as well? Because that's also been my notion. I would never recommend anything to a client that I wouldn't recommend to my family. And I found out that this client A had been playing my voice notes when he had asked me for insight at the dinner table with his family. And his family was a completely healthy family. And this also just shows how fast things change. But within a span of like, I would say 6 to 8 months, Shane, his father caught COVID, and within a span of like 1 week, his father had like passed away, and he was the main breadwinner. And then I found out it was a big like Portuguese family. It was like three kids, all adults, and then like a mother and father, and they were business owners, and like they didn't know like what to do. And here's the sad thing. This is another thing as well, is that they had an advisor before, but they had never seen the advisor in the last 10 years. And every time they did do reviews with the advisor, all he tried to do was sell them products and things like that. So when it came to going through this process, it was a lot of, in a sense, I guess, free work, but it was generally, I was like, I'll help you and your family out. So, put them in touch with like an executor or an attorney to help with the wind of their estate. They had like 2 or 3 businesses and like properties and stuff. They didn't know where to start. We got in contact with the accountants. And the only time their advisor or the parents' advisor had come in contact with them was found out when, they wanted to file for a death claim on the husband's policy. And the advisor still had the audacity to say, oh, to file the death claim on your life policy, I charge 3.5% of the insured amount. And it was like a 8 to 10 million rand life cover, and they had a lot of different things to say. And the wife asked me actually, like, is this a normal standard? And I said to her, no, like unless this guy is moving mountains for you and it's justifiable, then yeah, maybe to a certain degree. But I mean, like I said, like other than that, it's not a stand within the industry. So just giving them like, I wouldn't say free advice, but that genuine advice of like guiding them through it. It wasn't my intention, but eventually the whole family, the Remain family came to me as clients, and it wasn't from a business intention. I was just sharing like from my experience because my mom had passed in 2018 from cancer. So my family had gone through a death before. And I had used that perspective, of like how what a client would experience. Not saying it's exactly the same, but like, this is how I felt, and I was so confused and overwhelmed, or the family was so confused and overwhelmed. And just someone to give them clarity. And you won't realize like how much, I would say, clients appreciate that, because they appreciated that so much, because they're like, you actually from the get-go, you're not after our money. You just genuinely want to help, So with that being said, look, majority of your clients, I would say, especially to those that are, earlier in the industry or younger to the industry as well, and this is something I've learned over the years, majority of your clients are like that, are good. But one thing I've also learned in my early years, you also need to be careful that you don't get taken advantage of by clients that aren't willing to commit to building that relationship with you, and they just take advantage of your time and effort. Because yes, not only is it costing us our time and money, but more so what I've learned over the last couple of years is that you might think, okay, I'm just spending time with a client and I'm not paying anything for it. But one thing that it is also costing you, that we are giving more of, especially since we're coaching and doing more behavioral finance with clients, is that we're giving up our emotional, I would say, output to them. So you need to also balance and make sure you're not being drained emotionally from that as well. So like I said, like majority of clients are good and all that, but you also just need to be wary as you like work along in the industry for clients that take advantage of you, so that you're not giving too much output. Otherwise you end up feeling like drained and depressed and so forth. But that's also what this lifestyle financial planning group is here for as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Russell. Thanks. Ernie, I see you got your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I think a word that keeps coming to, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. A word that keeps coming to mind for me is authenticity. And I like what Simon, I think it was Simon, what he said about the importance of just really thinking about whether the people side is for you, and if it's not, perhaps think about what you probably should be doing. And I see in terms of the slide that was shared, for me it would come in or be tied to the part about caring and being genuinely interested in clients. I think some things you just cannot feign, and so it's important to really think long and hard about that and decide whether it is really for you. I think also having had minimal interactions with various individuals just around issues of lifestyle financial planning as a way of sort of testing the waters, I've also been able to identify instances where perhaps that approach isn't for the client. And so my question there would be, how then do you sort of go about it? And in my instance, it was further complicated by the fact that it was a couple that I had engaged. And so one of them was keen, very keen, but the other sort of wasn't for it, although he didn't really come out clearly. But as it turns out, his partner came back later to say, no, actually, he felt, the nature of the questions were too personal and things like that. So I just wanted us to have a chat around that and how perhaps get guidance on how to navigate that sort of scenario. or circumstance. Thanks.
And yeah, I think that's a great point. And I don't want to go on a tangent, but I think, okay, you're in Botswana, so you know, so the point that comes to mind for me is that I would imagine, we know that there are cultural differences even within our country in South Africa. You know, there are massive cultural differences in ways that money is dealt with, who deals with the money. You know, with people from different backgrounds, and it is a challenge. I know Yondela's on the call, and he's vocal about the struggle that he has with getting Black people to understand the value of financial advice and probably even in lifestyle financial planning. So I think it's a real, it is a real issue. How we fix it, I don't have a silver bullet, but I think what you need to do as a planner, you need to kind of decide what do you want to be to people. So, you know, for me, I know technical, I know a lot of stuff. I know people who know a lot of stuff, which is more important. But I mean, that's not what I want to be to people. And like you said, some people do want to be technical, and that's absolutely fine. So I think you've got to work out what you want to be. And although when we start our careers, we kind of will grab anyone who will listen to us, you know, anyone who we can help and at the same time make some money from. And we get that. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that you can't do that or you mustn't do that. You do. We need to feed our families, and that's a whole nother discussion about how we get remunerated and all the problems the industry's created. So I think that is a real issue. But I do think that so me having been in the industry a long time, I've kind of gone full circle, and we just say we will not deal with anyone who wants to be technical only. Anyone who won't go through our process. We had a guy come in here at over 70 million, and he couldn't get past the second leg of our process, so we disengaged. And you think, well, that's absolutely crazy. But I've learned over time that eventually, you know, you're not going to keep that client in any case, because as much as we want clients to speak, you know, we kind of, if you go to a doctor or a lawyer, you kind of know the direction you've got to steer the meeting or the conversation in to get the kind of outcomes that you know we need to be able to add value in the long run. And we all have those clients who, when they come into a meeting, they just take control, and you end up talking about stuff you never intended talking about. And you've really got to build a discipline that you avoid that as much as possible. And one of the points I've written down where that has helped our business tremendously is by having a fixed process that we take every single client through. Every single client. Doesn't matter how much they've got, how little they've got, what their age is. You know, we can say that 99.999% of our clients go through that process, and it works. And I mean, we've had an experience recently with a CEO of a big business who was told to speak to us. Nice guy. He went through the whole process, and then, you know, when we showed him the outcome, obviously it wasn't great, because when you live in Cape Town, you tend to keep up with not the Joneses, probably the Oppenheimers, or you try to. And this guy's got mates who are billionaires, and anyway, so what he saw, he really didn't like, and you know, he went and was quite vocal with another one of his partners, and then after he had calmed down, eventually he came back to us. But the great thing is that when we met again and we said, okay, so like we've explained to you that this is a process, and there are many levers we can pull to get you to the position that you need to be long term, and we started to embark on that. And we just said, okay, well, just tell us what you're thinking. And the first thing he said to us was that he really enjoyed the process. He enjoyed it, how it made him feel that we were interested in him, that it was all about him, that it was very specific to him. It wasn't generalized, like you need 70% of your final salary, all that stuff that a guy like that would normally be looking at. And for us, it's just further confirmation that a process is really, really important. And I know we've shared our process with all of you who've asked for it, and we will do so with anyone who haven't done that with. But it really, really works. And it feels a bit rigid, But what it does, it makes sure that at the end of that process, you've got the information you need, both around the person, who they are, and then also with the technical info or the financial info that we need to then be able to analyze their situation and then start discussing options for them. So yeah, that's quite important. Simon, you got your hand up there.
Yeah, I think I'll just summarize that. There was a lot of stuff, Dirk, that you said that I would have reiterated, but I think the big thing for me was is that onboarding meeting. It's crucial. I see it as like a screening test for both parties. They either get what you're doing, or you can immediately get a feel that, you know, maybe they won't, or you know, you're not really hitting it off so well. But it also helps manage their expectations. And the one thing that you mentioned was couples. So I've often had the sort of philosophy that you should try and get, you know, both parties in and involved in as many meetings as possible. I have also found out that sometimes, you know, one party prefers to sit out and let the other one take the reins, and that's also fine. But initially, at least they are on board with working with you, even if they don't want to be so involved, and that often comes through in the onboarding. But I have also sort of figured out that, you know, through a couple of examples, there was a young couple where both were earning really nicely for young people, but had never engaged with an advisor before. And, you know, the wife was particularly keen on the way we did things, and the husband was just sort of hell-bent on saying, you know, what are you going to do for me? What are the returns? And he was kind of missing the point on the planning side. And I already knew it wasn't going to work. So you indirectly, you save yourself a lot of time by screening, because, you know, eventually the wife decided to work with me and the husband decided to work with someone else. And I already knew that's not going to work, because I could see the dynamics in the relationship, that although she actually earned more than them, he had more influence on the decisions behind the scenes. And basically what happened was he took her to the other advisor, and I have no quarrel with that, because I think it wasn't going to work anyway. So long story short, I think if you can save yourself the time by having a process, like Dirk said, you know, you won't get locked into doing lots of things for someone that, like he said, will leave you anyway, highly likely. So you can almost you know, screen that sort of stuff out.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we try and get couples in. It really is important. Sometimes you can't, however, but you've always got to try and get them in later, because if something happens, you could end up dealing with that other partner that you've maybe never met and you've never actually built any kind of a relationship with. So,
and sorry, the other thing that I just wanted to mention, it in another case, one or two cases, it's also a timing thing. So again, young couple, never had experience, not sure, got a close mate, for example, in the industry, they go somewhere else and they come back because they've never, you know, I think when you get into your 40s, your 50s, a lot of people have had various experiences, hopefully with at least an advisor, or if it has been various ones, they may have a bit of a sour taste to, you know, the industry, because they just never really been getting anything from it. And then all of a sudden they meet you and they say, wow, okay, I've never done this before. It's never been done like this. I'm happy to work with you. Whereas if you get younger people who've never had, call it that experience, they eventually go get it somewhere else and realize, okay, hopefully they get a good experience and they stay with that person for whatever other reasons that they choose. And that's great. That means they're getting helped. But often, I think when they start to come back to you, they start to say, I've had it, where they say, you know, Simon, we're really sorry. You know, we wish we hadn't made the call or whatever else. And I'm sure lots of people have had similar experiences. So I think often one also has to just take it on the chin and say, maybe that wasn't the right time for that person. They weren't ready for that or that level of it. And then maybe there is another time where you know, it suits them better and they decide to come back. So I think don't take it too personally if you know, you run into a situation where for them it's not the right time and they move on.
great, thanks. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Simon. Haley, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, hi everyone. I just wanted to touch on what Simon said as well, just because I joined the Women in Investing webinar that 91 have been hosting. There's like a series about it. And it was just really interesting what they brought up about like the difference between like men and women and what they've found over you know, engaging with them either independently, but also specifically like as a couple, and how those meetings are often quite different. And two of the things that they said was that like women aren't necessarily like risk averse, they're just more risk aware than men have been in the meetings. And with that, then they found that men ask like goal-based questions, like how much return are we going to get, whereas women ask more like outcome-based questions. So like, will this be able to satisfy the need for my child to go to school? Not like, are the returns going to be 10%, but rather like, will the decision we're making get me to where I want to be? If it's more, great, but I just need to know that it's getting me to where I want and like the goal. So just maybe a question on how you like incorporate that into meetings, and yeah, just to like get the couple on the same page, like, and to sort of align with what you want to do when, you know, you're dealing with sort of, you know, stereotypically two different like tracks, you know, and ways of thinking.
Yeah, Haley, and I think the reality is that, again, there's no silver bullet. And I think some clients, you can get straight into the deep stuff, and other clients, it just takes longer. You know, we've got various tools. So we use the Return on Life tool from Anthony, and we've had a few meetings recently where the couple's like looking at each other at what their replies were to certain questions. And they say, no, but you don't think that. And she's saying, no, but I do actually. You know, so when you take them away, when your initial meetings are not about the money at all, it's all about them, then it makes it easier to make that connection. But you're quite right that in some cases, especially when, let's say, the man's been running the finances all the time, there's also a bit of, geez, if she finds out I actually haven't been doing a good job here, you know, she's going to think less of me. So there's a lot of that stuff. And sometimes it also depends on the relationship of that couple. So when they walk in, you don't know whether they're about to get divorced or they're hopelessly in love, or anywhere between there. And that can also affect, you know, how those meetings run. But I think, again, that's where just being really present and allowing your own personal senses to kind of, you know, trust your gut. Your gut's always right. Is really good. Barry, I see you got your hand up.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Nick. I don't want to, you know, segue the conversation, but either for now or for a later conversation, I'd love to get your thoughts. Simon prompted a question for me, dealing with clients at the moment who, well, actually they're prospects. Been chatting to them, you know, got a handle on where they were at, or at least that's where they were at a couple of months ago. Put together the finances, they went on a long holiday, and then sort of came back together again. And the husband said to me, well, he's made the decision to walk away from the marriage. And so I sit here with, I sat with a couple of other financial planners back, and they were absolutely give them both that.
Sorry, Barry, your sound's really bad. I don't know if your mic's.
Let me pull the Bluetooth.
Yeah, I think it's a bit better. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's much better.
Okay, good. So, a quick summary is dealing with a couple who he has chosen to get divorced, and so the question for me is, I know him well. I have met her a couple of times. I was dealing with them as a couple, as they plan out their separation. You know, is it better to have two different people representing them, one person continuing to work with both of them? You know, I haven't been in this emotional fraught land of divorce, and just wondering how best to handle it from a financial planning point of view.
Yeah, Barry, that's a tough one. You know, I mean, divorce can end in any way. You know, I mean, it could be absolutely terrible, or it's, you know, or it can, or some couples just get on with their lives and it's all fine. So I think it's going to depend on that situation. But I mean, again, if you've had a relationship with one of them, then that's going to be your client. If you've had with both of them, then I think what you've probably got to do is you've probably got to offer. You got to just be. It's like everyone's thinking, who's going to work with Barry? You got to like say, guys, like, how do you want to do this? And you know, maybe. And also you'll have a feeling of maybe who you get on better with, or like kind of, because you never want to pick sides. I mean, you're never going to win that. And I don't think like everyone loses in this situation, as we know. But I think You know, what you could do is then find another planner that you could refer the party to that you're not going to be dealing with. But it's a very difficult one because, you know, I think most of the time divorce gets quite nasty, and it does end up being about the money. And, you know, there's so much emotion at a time like that, then that it's very seldom that the people involved are able to actually operate, you know, like proper cognitively. That like they, you know, the emotion kills everything. So yeah, I would just be, again, I would just be open and honest and say, guys, how would you like to deal with this? They might say, okay, we're happy both of us dealing with you, or the one might say, look, no, we want to change. And then all you can do then is say, well, okay, offer to find someone that you know is good at what they do that could perhaps work with them. That's what I would do. Yeah. Has anyone else been in a situation like that?
I have once.
Okay, Sai, what did you do?
I said exactly what you've just said. I offered them to work. They both chose to work with me. And yeah, slowly over time, it had soured so badly between the two of them. Eventually, they literally wanted nothing to do with each other. And the husband said, I'm sorry. So I think it was about a year and a bit after that. And he said, I'm sorry, Simon, but I don't want any connection at all with my wife. I know, obviously, from what I share with you and what she shares with you, it's two conflicting stories. I'm going to part ways. So I said, absolutely no problem. So I think the best advice I'd say is give them the option, because I mean, usually, like in that case, I had a good relationship with both of them, and indirectly they will eventually make up their own mind. Unless you prefer, you know, you can obviously put it out there if you prefer to only work with one or not, or feel loyalty to one over the other, and you think it'll be a conflict of interest, then say that. But I think you just offer it to them.
Great. Ben, I know you got your hand up, but I saw Brittany put her hand up and Russell on this subject. So Brittany. Okay, I think Brittany might be, oh, okay, you're typing there. Okay, I'm not sure if this, I went with, yeah, so I think Brittany there, you know, if the question is what happens if you find somebody who doesn't think that they'll be a good fit. If the client doesn't think you're a good fit, then you really, you want to disengage. I mean, you've both got to be happy in the relationship, or it's not going to work at all. Yeah. Russell, did you have something on the divorce?
Yeah, I'm actually dealing with a scenario like that now. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, you'd be surprised, especially, I mean, I'm dealing with an exact situation now where I had worked with this couple, this married couple, for the last 3-4 years, 4 to 5 years. And, you know, the most happiest couple, flip, it was literally like a married couple goes to me because I had them, they have a boy together, and they've been so nice. And then over the last year, and it came out now that for whatever reason, there was no cheating or anything involved, but they had like fallen out of love. And I was like shocked. I was shocked, because I think a lot of you, especially if you're younger to the industry, you'll find you have to also kind of like keep up a line, but like you get quite personally involved with the clients because you get to know your clients so much. And I think, you know, the same as what you and Simon shared, you know, you have to kind of gauge how both of them feel and just kind of be open, honest with them. So I handled the exact same. The first thing I did was like I asked each of them individually, because obviously there's a lot of emotions involved. So I went and met with each of them individually. And the first thing you ask, you don't even talk about finance, you ask like, are you okay? Like, you know, because you'll find that 90% of our job is actually, that's one thing you also learn. It's not asking so many questions, but listening more. And it's something I've had to learn over the last couple of years. You listen more to the client than going in with like, okay, I'm going to ask all these questions, you know. And then also, we're in the same situation where I hope it doesn't get sour, but like they both, because I've had a good relationship with both of them, they both decided to still work with me. But you know, I've set up like a separate, even though it, you know, it might not help much, a separate confidentiality agreement with each of them. Said, look, everything we discuss with your stays yours, I won't discuss this to your ex, and vice versa. You know, so yeah, I would say you have to just kind of take on that. But a second solution to that is that, and also not to feel guilty about it as a financial planner, But if one of them does come out and say, look, I actually don't feel comfortable working with you because I know you're still connected to my wife, you're still advising her, or my ex-wife, then yeah, then it's best. And that's why it's also good to have a good trusted circle of advisors as well, is to, and like peers, is to say, okay, you know what, I have someone within my peer circle that he's great at advice, he's just as good as me, and you know, I can put you in touch with him or her. I think that also relates to a similar scenario to what Brittany's question was. So I had a client, for example, and I think this is another thing we don't realize. Clients also appreciate when you do things like this, and also you can end up getting referrals or future business from them as well. But I had a client that I had been advising for a year, and they were staying in South Africa, and out of nowhere they just decided like they're immigrating to New Zealand, you know, and they don't want to have anything in South Africa. And this also applies if you deal with a client that just doesn't gel fit with you. Having a good network of other peers or advisors that you would trust for advice, like this group or within your LinkedIn network, can also come in handy because like what I did with these advisors was that I said, look, I completely understand. Obviously, you know, it's unfortunate because we had built a good relationship. I have about 3 to 5 good advisors I know and I chat to on a regular basis in New Zealand that I would trust, and I can set up a meeting and put you in touch with them. You know, then at least I know you're in good hands. So even though you're not earning anything from it, that small effort makes a huge difference to them, because I ended up getting 1 or 2 referrals of their peers or friends that are still in South Africa that aren't immigrating that are here. And they said, like, you know, clients don't expect that. Likewise, I've seen cases where I've spoken to other advisors where they've done that as well. Adam Holt from SMS spoke about it as well, where if you come across a client, you know, that you just don't gel together and there's no chemistry, you know, no matter how you try, it's like you're going against a brick wall. You know, putting them in touch with another advisor that you would trust can actually come to your benefit, because you're still doing a service to that client, and who knows, that client could end up, you know, has a good representation of you because you're not just out there to make money off them, but also there's an opportunity that they could send other people to you because you've done that effortlessly, you know. So that's just my 2 cents on both those topics.
Great, thanks, Russell. Ben, you had your hand up.
So I know we've moved on slightly, but I just wanted to, there was one thing that I know you said that, you know, like the client felt like they're very personal questions. And I think the thing is, in financial planning, it is very personal. You know, I'm not saying that you did anything wrong in the situation. I'm just saying that in everything that we do, it's super personal. I read some stat that, you know, people are more happy to talk about their sex lives than they are about, you know, their finances. You know, and so this is why, again, it's coming back to the process. I think is also really important, because, you know, trust, you've got to build trust, and trust doesn't come, you know, from the first meeting. You can't just be in the first meeting, just be like, hey, so nice to meet you, how much do you earn? You know, like, it is very intimidating and very personal. So you've got to have a process to build out that trust. And then the second thing is that if they there was the second thing, but now I've forgotten what it was. But there was, but I think it's also like just knowing where they're going. Oh, why you need to ask these questions, positioning it. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, positioning why you're asking these questions. Because if they know where you're going and why you're trying to get this information, then they are also more they're more willing to divulge that information. A simple thing like I'd use when like data gathering, people hate to sort of send you, you know, bank statements and this and that and all those kind of things. And so what we do is we have the goal meeting first, and then at the end, it's kind of saying, okay, cool, now I know where you're wanting to go, but I need to see where you are right now so I can help you get to where you're going. You know, so I use the example, like if you're in Durban and you want to get to Joburg, you might be heading towards Cape Town, but I need to know which direction you're heading so that I can help you to take that correction. Then they're more likely to give that information, because they're like, oh, exactly, I 100% realize why I need to give this information to you now. So I think positioning as well, as we can see through this graph, you know, the interpersonal skills, the communication, and those things are really important. So if we really understand what they are trying to achieve and what they want, and we position it correctly, it's going to also help, you know, that relationship.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Definitely. I think also what we've what works really well with us, with our process, is that very often clients, if they've had a previous experience with a financial planner of sorts, and our meetings will then run completely different to what they expected. And that also kind of, that catches them off guard, but in a nice way, because it's like, they're like, what must I bring to the meeting? And so like, nothing, just yourself and an open mind, and you get them at ease. And we have the opinion that, or I have the opinion that the more often we can meet with clients, the better, because every time, you've heard that saying that, your client's impression of you is as good as the last meeting you had with them. So sometimes, meetings aren't that a meeting that's maybe not great. Advice is get another great meeting as quickly as you can, because that's going to be their last memory of their experience with you. And then also just on the technical stuff, people, the general people out there, the man in the street, they don't know the technical stuff even exists. So they know there's something called a state duty, but most people got no idea what that is, how much it is, how it works, what they can do about it. And I think the more we can, clients don't need to know everything. We don't need to sit and explain every calculation to them, whatever. They're not interested. They want that one-page plan. That's what most people, they want one page to look at. Okay, I understand everything. There we go. So I think we've actually got to steer away from, showing off our technical expertise. And the more we can do that, but obviously still bring it into the client's planning, the better we'll be. June.
Maybe just to a few of the points that was raised. So a lot of times I do audits just on, let's say, an initial engagement, like an onboarding meeting, like you were all talking about. And the two things that I'm looking out for is, one is personal connection. So, after you've had that meeting with me, how well do you really know me? Do I feel like there was like a personal connection, a relatedness? So I look out for that. And the second thing is what Ben spoke about, and that is, how clear is the process to me that I'm going to go through if I actually now decide to work with you. And interesting enough, the last month I had one. There was a great connection, but the process wasn't clear. I wasn't sure where this is going to take me. I don't know what it's going to look like. What is it that you're going to do for me? So that wasn't clear, but the connection was absolutely great. And the second one I had was, the process was clear, but there was no anything about getting to know me better. So, and it's very difficult. So if I have to, and I think maybe it talks to that interpersonal skill. So if I had to decide which one of the two, I'd probably go with the one where I felt like a better connection, and maybe question more on the process. So maybe just to those points. But part of the process for me, and I think that's where Simon also said, it's like you have to be very versatile, but I think that initial process should definitely entail both, like connection as well as what does your process entail. So it kind of speaks to both. Thanks, Dirk.
Yeah. No, and I think it goes further than even your onboarding practice and your onboarding process, and then it's like how you meet in future, because you can have these great meetings, build this perfect plan, which we know will change, and then, well, if you want to keep that client, if you want to keep that relationship at that level in years to come, ideally you want a client for life. Sometimes we just kind of accept that we'll meet them and we'll shoot the breeze and chat about this and that, and nothing's really changed. But I think the challenge is that there's a real challenge out there for us to kind of keep on looking at ways of adding value, just to keep that relationship fresh. Otherwise it will go stale. So, and again, by just being genuinely interested in people, I think that's really important. Okay, anyone have anything else to add? Yeah, Yondela.
Hey, Doug. So I think, yeah, man. Thanks. I really enjoyed today's session. Because it's really something I've really been struggling with. Coming from like a very technical background at PSG and at South City, and being now client facing, and especially Black professionals, I think I find myself in a very big conundrum, because they want to, it's as if they want to see your technical ability, because they've been swindled by these incompetent advisors out there, And so now it feels like there's a serious need for me to show them that I've got the ability and skill that they need. And it's as if they do not want, this care, or this authentic, this real, I don't know. I mean, I guess this concept that we've been speaking about of, people really don't really care about the technical stuff. Yet I find myself, having to justify, myself in front of these professionals. And I'm just trying to think, how do I, position myself in such a way that I'm not just overshadowed by my technical ability, but people see the value that I bring or the value that financial planning brings. And I just feel like there's such a big disconnect, especially within the African community, because they literally just have had no good experiences with advisors, and so, that's my war.
Yeah, Yondela, thanks for sharing. And I mean, like I say, I don't know what the answer is. I know that you put on previously in the group, you were meeting with a group of professionals. And I mean, it's like going to 11-year-old's birthday party. Everyone's going to be trying to outdo each other by asking you tougher questions. So although sometimes you will present to a group, I think what you got to do then is keep your message very simple, and hopefully it'll resonate with some of the people. But otherwise, you want to try and meet with people one-on-one. And if you start by asking people about themselves, generally most people will let their guard down. But I do understand the cultural thing. I don't understand the cultural thing. So, but I do understand it's a problem. And I think it's a really interesting aspect of our industry. And the future there is going to be really interesting. I think there's a lot of work that can be done. I know that doesn't help you right now with your status quo, but I would just say to you, try and meet one-on-one as much as you can, and steer the direction where make it all about the person you're sitting with. Ask them about themselves. You will understand a lot of the cultural side to the background that they come from. So, which I, as a white male, certainly wouldn't even know where to start. So I think just dig into that, and that's possibly something that you have that is unique to you. You can deal with the technical stuff when they ask, but then steer it back, and that's where having a process really works, because you'll take a tangent and you say, okay, but let's get back here. So it's almost like having an agenda. Agenda sounds like a horrible word, but it's really important, because you'll get that outcome. A few of you have asked about the process, and I know a lot of you guys on the call have already seen that. I'm quite happy that we set up a separate session for those who haven't seen it, or perhaps those who want to experience it again. I'm quite happy to do that as well. So you can just put that on the WhatsApp group, and then we can set up a time where we can do that. Ben.
So just to answer Yandela, I mean, my wife is Sotho, and so I can relate to you in some aspects, and I also work into a lot of that market. And I think a lot of it is because people don't know what they don't know, if that makes sense. So when people come across, there are a lot of people will say, oh, well, I want you to I need 20% returns, and those things, because that's what they think a financial planner does, right? And so they'd come in with these technical things because they're like, I want my money to work for me while I'm sleeping. They hear the jargon, if that makes sense. And so that's what they're coming in for. But you got to spend a little bit of time, like Dirk said, just kind of getting to know them, but then asking why do they want that? What is that 20% return giving for them? So like I work with a lot of doctors, and so for them it's maybe giving up doing calls, and so like they don't want to be working these extra hours, and so it's not actually really about the return, but that's the only reason. It's the only way they know how to ask the question. They don't come in saying, you know what, actually I want to be financially secure so that I don't have to work overtime. I just want to be working. No one comes in with a simple question. But it comes across as I need a 20% return, or I need to have R1 million or something, like that's how they ask the question. But by spending those times getting deeper, it actually unveils what they actually want to get to. And then when we build through this process, it opens up a lot more, and then they do buy into it. And I think it's just because they haven't seen it, and I was speaking to my wife, and she said, when you see a financial planner, you just think that they're there going, buy, sell MTN, that's all we're doing every day, because that's the expectation that's been imparted on them. And so that's why they don't know how to ask. So I think it's, again, just getting to know them will help you to actually show them what they do need. I don't know if that helps.
100%. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. Thanks. I think, and we almost, I considered postponing today because of the load shedding, but thank God we didn't, because I think this is one of the better sessions that we've had. And I really, for the youngsters who are battling at the start of your career, because you are and you will, and that's just how it is. It's a very, very tough industry, this, but extremely rewarding when you stick at it and you come out the other end. But I think like a few of the stories that people have shared today just shows how important our work is, what a difference we actually make in people's lives, which is what we got to be about. And then also how rewarding that is for us, because I think, for, most of the people on this call, I'd imagine, have that care gene when you're able to make a difference in someone's life, and you never know when that's going to happen. And that's why the relationship is so important. You never know when that moment's just going to happen where you can absolutely be pivotal in your life. And sometimes I think we actually don't even know it's happening. Sometimes someone will come to you later on and say, geez, when we had that meeting, it really helped me with X, Y, Z. And the only way you can do that is to be honest and authentic in all of our meetings. And I think that's why this industry is so special and such a gift to the people we serve and to us. So well done, guys. Anyone else want to say something before we log off? All right, great. Nice to meet the newbies. Mike, Brittany, we hope to see you someday. And Bradley, guys, thanks for sharing. As you said, this is a safe place where we can ask all those stupid questions, which actually aren't so stupid, and it's the only way that we can learn from each other. So, great, guys, a great session, and just let me know anyone who wants to go through our process. We can set that up at a time when it works for everyone, and otherwise we'll see you online. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thanks, Dirk. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.